We have the head of department, Pure and Applied Chemistry, Professor Abidin Adeogun. You're welcome, sir. Also seated here, we have Dr. Mrs. Fadeke Akpantaku. You're welcome, ma. We are not done. We have another friend of the department, Dr. Matthew Weto. You're welcome, sir. And all the way from Lautech, that is Ladoke Akitola University of Technology, we have Dr. Oluwaseun Adeshina. Welcome to FUNAB, madam. You're welcome, ma. And also from the Department of Banking and Finance, FUNAB, we have Dr. Oluwatosin Oyetayo. And I'm not forgetting Dr. Wale Orojo. You're welcome, ma. Please, I will recognize every other person in the course of the program. Right now, please may we rise for the national anthem, to be followed by FUNAB anthem. National anthem, please. Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign fatherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hang on to our children a banner without stain. Oh God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. FUNAB anthem. School Thank you very much. Please, may we have our seats. Permit me to recognize the presence of the Deputy Registrar and the Vice Chancellor's Office, Mr. Moses Anyoda. You're welcome, sir. And my gentle big sister here, the head of department, physics, Professor Comfort Okeyode. Welcome, ma'am. Please, all the students of the department, Department of Statistics, please give yourself a round of applause as you're seated here. You're highly welcome to this program. So without wasting time, we want to sail this ship, and to do that, we want to take the opening remark, which will be taken by the Chairman, Royal Statistical Society Nigeria Local Group, Professor Olani Olayiwola. Please, let's welcome him as he comes on board.
Thank you. The Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics, Professor Kayode Akinyemi, representing the Vice Chancellor, Professor Babatunde Kehinde, the Dean, College of Physical Sciences, Professor Eti Akinwale, the Deputy Dean, College of Physical Sciences, Professor Aye Osunoga, our esteemed keynote speakers, and President of International Association of Service Statisticians, Professor Natalia Slom, distinguished professors here present, online and physical, my senior and junior colleagues, participants, and students joining both physically and virtually, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is with a great pleasure and appreciation that I welcome you all to the 3rd International Conference of the International Association of Service Statisticians and Royal Statistical Society Nigeria Local Group. This conference serves as a platform for statisticians, researchers, industry professionals, and policymakers to engage in a meaningful discussion on how statistics can drive national and global development. The theme, the power of statistics for a better future, is particularly relevant as we continue to explore innovative ways to apply statistics in addressing critical challenges in governance, economy, healthcare, education, and other sectors. The Royal Statistical Society Nigerian Local Group was established in 2018 with a clear mandate to organize talks, workshops, conferences to advance statistical knowledge and practice, to promote collaboration with industries, government agencies, and academia on statistical issues, engage in outreach activities aimed at improving statistical literacy and professional development, and some other items. Since its inception, the group has been at the forefront of capacity building and statistical development in Nigeria. And I am pleased to note that this is our 3rd international conference, a testament to our dedication to promoting excellence in statistical research and application. I extend my sincere gratitude to the Royal Statistical Society in London, United Kingdom, and International Association of Service Statisticians for their continuous support and encouragement. Their commitment to fostering capacity building and professional development in Nigeria has been instrumental in making this and other past conferences a success. We deeply appreciate their contributions in improving mentorship, resources, and opportunities for Nigerian statisticians to engage at a global level. I also want to especially acknowledge and appreciate Prince Adeyemi Adeniro, the Statistician General of the Federation and the Chief Executive Officer of the National Bureau of Statistics, for his steadfast support for the Royal Statistical Society Nigeria Local Group. His leadership has been instrumental in advancing practice of statistics in Nigeria. We are particularly grateful for National Bureau of Statistics sponsorship across various departments to attend this conference. These commitments underscore the importance of continuous professional development in statistics and survey methodology, ensuring that Nigeria remains at the forefront of data-driven policymaking and national planning. I must also extend my profound appreciation to the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, led by our Vice Chancellor, Professor Babatunde Kehinde, for hosting this international conference and consistently supporting RSS Nigeria Local Group since 2018. FUNAB has remained a strong partner in our efforts to advance statistical education and research in Nigeria, and we truly appreciate their unwavering commitment to our cause. In addition, I acknowledge the Chartered Institute of Statisticians of Nigeria, CISON, for their dedication to the professional advancement of statistics in Nigeria. While it is exciting to see the active participation of many of you in the RSS Nigeria Local Group, I strongly encourage all attendees, physical and virtually, to also become member of CISON, our local professional body, which provides statutory recognition and professional certification for statisticians in Nigeria. Membership details for RSS, IASS, and CISONs have been shared on our social platforms, and I encourage all participants to take advantage of these opportunities. As we commence this important gathering, I urge all participants to take full advantage of the lectures, presentations, discussions, and networking sessions. This conference provides a rare opportunity to learn from renowned statisticians and experts, including our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Natalia Slum, whose presentation, Sampling Maritime Populations, Experience for the Evidence for Equality National Survey on Impact of COVID-19 on Ethnic and Religious Minority Group in Britain, promises to offer deep insight into inclusive data collection and policy-driven research. On this note, I welcome you once again, and I wish you a highly engaging and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please let's appreciate our own Professor Lani Olaiwola, Chairman, RSS NLG. Once again, thank you very much, sir. Before I call on the next person, permit me to recognize the presence of Professor Abiodun Oladoye. You're welcome, sir. And Dr. Abosede Akitunde, please, you're highly recognized. Dr. Adio Akamo, all right, you're highly recognized. Dr. Emmanuel Adeleke, you're welcome, sir. Dr. Taiwo Shoyinka, you're welcome, sir. Mr. Kehinde Yusuf and Dr. Abayomi Ajayi, you're welcome, sir. Next on the line, we want to at least appreciate and welcome every one of us to this day and to this program. And to do that, I'm calling on the Dean, College of Physical Sciences, COFIS, Professor Adio Akiwale.
Let me first recognize our Vice Chancellor, Professor Babatunde Kehinde, ably represented by DVC Academic, Professor Olukayode Akinyemi. Again, let me recognize Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic in person of Professor Olukayode Akinyemi. It's our staff. We already invited him, and he must be here. And he's a professor of geophysics. And we know statistics domicile in College of Physical Sciences. So let me again recognize my Deputy Dean, Professor Oshinoga, Professor of Numerical Analysis, and the HOD, Optimizations, and the HOD Professor Agwigbu, ably represented by Dr. Daudu, and the Assistant General of Ogun State, former Mr. Alao, you are highly recognized, and the facilitator, the chairman of this Royal Statistical Society, Nigeria group, Professor Olaiwola Matthew. I must also recognize the president in person of Professor Natalia Shiloma. He is the president, International Association of Survey Statisticians. And let me again welcome all the professors, my HODs, physics, Professor Okeyode, HOD of chemistry, Professor Adeogun, and the former HOD, Professor Dr. Apantaku, professors here, directors in the VC office, Mr. Anyoda, all the professors from other departments, Professor Alao, Dr. Adeleke, and the professor from outside, doctor from outside, you are highly welcome and recognized. Staff in the CSC department, all the students, you are highly recognized. And let me first congratulate the International Association of Survey Statisticians and the Royal Statistical Society, not only for holding this conference. They have done the first and they have done the second. This is the third. So you are highly welcome to this third international conference of International Association of Survey Statisticians and Royal Statistical Society, Nigeria Local Group. And again, I must first acknowledge the support of Mr. Vice Chancellor. He has been supporting this society since 2018 to the extent they gave us an office. We have office in this university. That is International Association of Survey Statisticians and Royal Statistical Society. They gave an office for us. And looking forward, the way the chairman is working furiously, likely they may see half a building in this university that will bear International Association of Survey Statisticians and Royal Statistical Society. They are working on it. So Professor Olaiwola has interacted with many statisticians, not only in Nigeria, outside Nigeria. And he has brought innovative idea. When he came back from London, he wrote many ideas to the university, and we borrowed the ideas by saying he wants good students that are very good in calculation to help weak students that are very good in calculation in form of tutorial. And we're now saying, how can we pay them? He said the association of each department, they always contribute association due, that they can use part of it to pay those good students so that they can help us what? Tutor those weak ones. Now it's working in the college. So we are very grateful. Again, he proposed, because we have poor students, how can we help them? He proposed that what? Percentage of their association due, they can see use what? To pay in form of loan, which we tried this year in the college. The coefficient in the college borrow many students in form of loan. But we know that to pay that loan may be difficult. But it's on record. We have of them. Based on what? His idea. So we thank you so much for that. Again, we need to recognize the National Bureau of Statistics for their support. They always support us, especially the Prince Adeyemi Adeniran, who is the president. He sponsored a few participants for this conference. So let's appreciate him for that. And if you can know, the theme of this conference is the power of statistics for future need. Power of statistics. When we say power of statistics, statistics has power to model the nation, to model the society, to model ourselves. Even we can use statistics to reshape the society. And what? Reshape again. You see, that's why we are here, and I have to acknowledge all the participants, scholars, that have created time to submit their papers for presentation. I hope at the end, the challenges we are facing, because we have global challenges for this to model the nation, especially all these big data that are coming. It is work of statistics. So at the end, we hope that what? New emergency method will emerge to solve the challenges of shape and reshaping ourselves, the society at large. I thank you. I welcome you to FUNAP for this conference, and I pray we have good deliberation, productive one. So thank you so much. God bless.
Please let's appreciate the Dean once again. The power of statistics for a better future. And I want to believe that at the end of the day, at the end of this conference, everybody will realize the power and apply it to the positive way it should. Next, for the opening program, is the declaration of the program open officially. And to do that, I want to specially call on the Vice Chancellor, ably represented by the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Olukayode Akiyemi, for the Vice Chancellor's welcome address and officially declare this conference open.
The former Statistician General of Ogun State, Mr. Lao, the Chairman, Committee of Deans and Directors of our university, and the Dean of the College of Physical Sciences, Professor Adio Akinwale, the Deputy Dean of the College of Physical Sciences, Professor Shinuga, our own very energetic, indefatigable Professor Olayiwola, the Head of the Department of Statistics, represented by Professor Daudu. Let me stand on the existing protocol. This is the opening remarks by the Vice Chancellor at the 3rd International Conference of the International Association of Survey Statisticians, Royal Statistical Society Nigeria Local Group, with the theme, The Power of Statistics for a Better Future. Our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Natalie Shlomo, our esteemed scholars here present, distinguished guests, esteemed scholars, respected members of the International Association of Survey Statisticians and the Royal Statistical Society, all categories of participants, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all, both in-person and virtual participants, to the third International Conference of the International Association of Survey Statisticians, the Royal Statistical Society, Nigeria, local group. The theme, The Power of Statistics for a Better Future, highlights the critical role of statistics in driving evidence-based decision-making, shaping policies, and solving real-world challenges. This conference provides an excellent platform for scholars, practitioners, and policymakers to exchange knowledge, foster collaborations, and advance statistical methodologies for society impact. I extend my sincere appreciation to the International Association of Survey Statisticians and the Royal Statistical Society UK for their unwavering commitment to capacity building in Nigeria and their contributions to advancing statistical education, research, and practice. Their support has been instrumental in strengthening the role of statistics in various sectors, empowering researchers, and shaping the next generation of statisticians in Nigeria and beyond. At the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, we recognize the immense value of statistics in agriculture, health, economics, and national development. Over the years, we have provided strong institutional support for the Royal Statistical Society of Nigeria, and I assure you that FUNAB will continue to champion initiatives that promote statistical literacy, research excellence, and real-world application of statistical methods. It is a great privilege to welcome our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Natalie Shlomo from the University of Manchester, United Kingdom, who is also the president of the International Association of Survey Statisticians. Our presentation, Sampling Minoritized Populations, Experiences from the Evidence for Equality National Survey on the Impact of COVID-19 on Ethnic and Religious Minority Groups in Britain, will undoubtedly provide invaluable insights into inclusive data collection and the role of statistics in addressing health and social inequalities. I encourage all participants to actively engage and take full advantage of the wealth of knowledge she brings. As we embark on this conference, I encourage all participants to engage in meaningful discussions, share innovative ideas, and explore collaborative opportunities that will contribute to the advancement of survey statistics, data science, and policy-driven research. On this note, it is my honor and privilege to declare the third International Conference of the International Association of Survey Statisticians, Royal Statistical Society of Nigeria Local Group officially open. I wish you all fruitful deliberations and a highly successful conference. Thank you for your attention and God bless you. Professor Olushola Babatunde Kehinde, Vice Chancellor.
Please let's appreciate the Vice Chancellor once again. Thank you very much. Now we know we're in business because the program has been declared open officially. Please permit me to recognize the presence of the representative of the current State Statistician General, Mr. Bolanrede Abimbola. You're welcome, sir. At this point, we are drawing the curtain of the opening of this conference so that we can move to the next phase. So right now we want to have a group photograph with members of the high table and some of our eminent guests here seated. We'll take a group photograph and come back for the presentation. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate every one of us, all our students, all our special guests, the Statistician General's representative, the former and the first Statistician General of Ogun State, and most especially our Vice Chancellor for declaring the conference open. So please, let's get set as we delve into the phase 2 of the conference. Please have a wonderful stay in Funab and make sure you enjoy yourself throughout the program. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have with us already online the President, International Association of Survey Statisticians, all the way from University of Manchester, Professor Natalie Shlomo. I would like to take a brief citation of Professor Shlomo. Natalie Shlomo is a professor of social statistics at the University of Manchester. Her main areas of interest are in survey statistics and survey methodology. She has over 80 publications and referred book chapters, and a track record of generating external funding for her research. She is an elected member of the International Statistical Society, ISI, a fellow of the Royal Statistical Society, a fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences, and president from 2023 to 2025 of the International Association of Survey Statisticians. She also serves on national and international methodology advisory committees and editorial boards. She is our invited speaker for the 3rd International Conference of Royal Statistical Society Nigerian Group in conjunction with the International Association of Survey Statisticians. Her lecture focused on sampling monitorized populations, experiences from the evidence for equality, national survey on the impact of COVID-19 on ethnic and religious minority groups in Britain. Welcome with me, Professor Natalie Shlomo, for her presentation. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm just going to see if I can share my slide.
National survey on the impact of COVID-19 on ethnic and religious minority groups in Britain. Welcome with me, Professor Natalie Shlomo, for her presentation. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm just going to see if I can share my slide.
National survey on the impact of COVID-19 on ethnic and religious.
Yes, I hear a recording. Can you hear me and see my slides? Can you confirm that you hear me and see my slides?
We
Okay,
can.
I see. Yes, we can. All right. So I will make a start then. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll start checking the chat. I'm just going to make this full screen, so that's going to impact on what I see. All right. Thank you so much for inviting me to give this talk. The topic is a hot topic nowadays among survey statisticians. And the reason is because the survey statisticians need to find ways of being more inclusive and including those hard to capture groups into our studies. As you know, in our probability-based surveys, because ethnic minority groups are small proportions in the population, it's very possible that we don't even investigate people in ethnic minority groups. And there's been recent research by the survey statistician community to start thinking outside of the box and moving to non-probability samples. So I was privileged to be invited by a group of sociologists to help them with a online survey, a non-probability online survey on the experiences of ethnic minority groups in the United Kingdom. And so I thought I would share these insights. So it's a very much an application. There's no new theory here, but a very interesting application. It's probably one of the first times that a very large scale a non-probability sample was conducted, certainly in the United Kingdom. And therefore, I have a large group of collaborators, mostly sociologists and researchers that helped on this project, and you can see them all listed here. So I'm going to open with why do we need a non-probability sample for hard to survey groups, and particularly focus on the problems of sampling ethnic minority groups in the United Kingdom. And then I'm going to describe this application, which is a large-scale non-probability web survey called the 2021 Evidence for Equality National Survey, or EVENS. And then, since this is a statistics conference, I will get into some statistics, certainly about how we monitor the data collection and how we produce the survey weights so that we can have statistical inference from this survey and even produce a few results. So what do we mean by hard to survey populations? These are populations that are small in numbers, they're hidden or difficult to find or contact, and they typically resist invitations to take part in surveys because there might be a higher level of distrust. And minoritized groups also may be more mobile and difficult to reach by our standard data collection methods using the telephone or face-to-face or post, and they're also more expensive to survey. So our standard probability-based survey designs are typically underrepresented for populations that are easy to exclude. And recently, certainly in these days, there's a much ethical concern about excluding these populations in surveys and not having them have a voice in the implication in policy making, etc. And they are invisible, and we are not able to produce equitable statistics. So this is now sort of a buzzword among survey statisticians to make sure we have equitable statistics and we're representing everyone. So in particularly related to ethnic minority groups in the United Kingdom, there's a very large data gap and persistent barriers to investigating these groups. Naturally, in the United Kingdom, there's a census every 10 years, which aims to collect information about everybody in the population. But nevertheless, we don't have data or information about these ethnic minority groups in between the censuses. Now, the Office for National Statistics, which is the National Statistical Institute of the United Kingdom, try and take their large-scale labor force survey combined over a number of years to try and gain some insight about the ethnic minority groups in the United Kingdom, and they published that on their website. The problem is that they are able to produce statistics for only sort of grouped categories and 7 ethnic minority groups. That's all, only 7. So the problems with probability-based samples is the lack, of course, of a universal frame. How do we find these ethnic minority groups, certainly when we don't have registers, such as what happens in the United Kingdom? So typically in some of our large surveys, our household longitudinal surveys, what they've done is try to oversample areas that might have higher density of ethnic minority groups, say from the last census. So there is a high risk of selection and coverage biases using this approach, particularly if ethnic minority groups are less dense in the geographical areas. And of course, the geographical clustering impacts on efficiency of estimates. So the idea is to look at the proportions of ethnic minority groups from the last census and try and oversample those areas. But that's typically what was done in the United Kingdom, but there's a large chance of missing many of these individuals. Another problem with probability-based samples, they typically will use a push-to-web approach. So they will conduct a probability-based sample, say they will select addresses randomly, etc. But they want to reduce the cost of data collection, and they typically will send out questionnaires in the post, or they will send out a letter in the post and invite people to go online. Here's a link to a web survey, go online. And these, of course, typically suffer from low response rates. So as I said, the survey statisticians have been grappling with these problems of a non-representativeness of our ethnic minority groups and other hard to capture groups. And there has been more acceptability and methodological advancements in conducting non-probability sampling. And one example is grounded in sociology and snowball sampling, and that's called respondent-driven sampling. And that was one of the first efforts to take a non-probability sample and try and adjust a priori to get some sort of insight on what the inclusion probability would be in such a non-probability sampling design. So, and as I said, and that didn't really have a lot of success. It might have a little bit of success in those sort of hard to capture groups that are very localized, just say homeless people in a certain area, etc. But certainly not for large scale investigation that we wanted to do on the impact of COVID-19 in ethnic minority groups. So the idea was to carefully design and think in advance and be very careful about designing and implementing a non-probability sample that would cover the whole of Britain and investigate the impact of COVID-19 on these ethnic and religious minority populations. So the aim was to collect information on the extent and drivers of ethnic and religious inequalities during and post-COVID-19, and in particular look at experiences of racial discrimination. And as I mentioned in the title of this talk, the application is the Evidence for Equality National Survey, EVENS, to specifically investigate the impact of COVID-19 on the ethnic minority groups in the United Kingdom. So it's a group of sociologists, and I, as a survey statistician, joined the sociologists to conduct the methodology here and for this innovative survey, a very large survey. We conducted it between February and October 2021. However, we had to take a break in the middle, after about 4 weeks of conducting the survey, again, first experiences of trying to run a non-probability web survey, we found a lot of cases of fraud and bots, particularly because we were giving out incentives of 10 pounds if you fill out the questionnaire. And so we had to pause the survey in April for about a month to put in a lot more stringent controls on who's entering the survey and who's responding. And so I'll mention that a little bit as well, because we have very insightful lessons learned on conducting such surveys. So, as I said, I worked with a group of sociologists, and this was coordinated by the Center on the Dynamics of Ethnicity Code that is based in Manchester, but the researchers are all over the United Kingdom. And we were privileged to work with the survey organizations Ipsos in the United Kingdom. And one of the highlights of this project was that it was funded by the Economic and Social Research Council of the United Kingdom. And I believe this is probably one of their first studies that they funded, which is totally based on non-probability sampling. So it was very innovative in that sense. So I'm just going to highlight a few lessons learned before we get into some statistics. What we did for this survey is that we established partnerships and carried out recruitment through what is called the voluntary community and social enterprise organizations. So in the United Kingdom, most of the ethnic minority groups have sort of an umbrella association associated with their ethnic group. For example, there's the Muslim group and the Gypsy Traveler group and the Jewish Research Council, all sorts of things that is sort of an umbrella organization for ethnic minority groups. And so we actually partnered with all of these VCSE organizations to help us in developing the questionnaire. Remember, we were going to translate the questionnaire, right? So help us with the questionnaire and the design of the survey. And more important, to conduct the digital and social media campaigns through their own mailing lists to ensure the recruitment to the survey. Remember, it's a non-probability sample. I don't have a sample frame, right? I have to go out and invite people to join the survey. So that's the difference between a probability and a non-probability sample. I don't have a list of all the individuals that I can select randomly. And so it was important for us to make sure that our recruitment was, we had a far outreaching recruitment, and we worked with the VCSEs to help us reach their constituents and their populations. Another important lesson learned is that this is a non-probability sample. And we know that we're going to have to adjust, not just the standard weighting group, weighting implementation that we do on our random surveys, but we also will have to adjust for selection bias. And that's an important thing to remember. So when we designed our questionnaire, we were able to insert in the questionnaire some common questions from our probability-based sample, say the labor force survey, which can be used as reference sample to correct for the selection bias in the non-probability sample. And it's not just about questions related to your social economic characteristics, but also questions related to your participation. Why would somebody go online and fill out the survey? So we have to think about what is motivating participation to the survey. And so we had to think about questions that are related to participation in general. For example, it's in the literature, we did a literature search, it's known that those who have more trust in the government are more inclined to respond to a survey. Those who vote in the elections are more inclined, to participate in surveys. And so we had to also make sure we had questions in the questionnaire about, did you vote and how satisfied are you with the government? And I mean, some of these questions we wanted to ask anyways, of course, since we're investigating the phenomenon of their COVID experiences with COVID. But we did insert questions, and more important, we had to have a question, about internet access. Do you have internet access, and how are you accessing the internet? Because this is a web survey. Another lesson learned, we're investigating ethnic minority groups. And so we had translations, and we worked for the VCSEs to translate our questionnaire, make sure it's not trivial to translate a questionnaire from English, say, to Punjab, right? And there might be different contexts and different constructs that have different meanings. And of course, we wanted to ensure that we had a telephone number as well, so that if somebody does not have access to internet, they can call the telephone and fill out the questionnaire. There's also an issue in methodological survey statistics that we have this issue of a multiple frame scenario. So once we have many sort of recruitment strategies, is there a way for an individual to come into the survey in multiple ways, and which might lead to some sort of duplication of the inclusion probability? But we investigated this, and we thought that probability was pretty low. In other words, if we're recruiting through the VCSEs and maybe recruiting through a panel sample from a survey organization, there probably is not, that the frames are independent. Could be that it's an easy assumption to make, whereas it's not necessarily probably the case. But that's what we assumed. And this made the weighting strategy much easier if we assume that all of these recruitment strategies are independent. Oof, sorry, clicked the wrong button. Let me just go back to my slides. Apologies. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let's go on. I clicked the wrong button. Now, the important thing is that the survey had to do with ethnic minority groups. So we had to have a screening questionnaire in advance. And we used a registration survey to screen in advance, and they had to tick a box about, on their ethnic minority group, and they had to be over 18, and they had to live in Britain, not Northern Ireland, right? So it was Wales, Scotland, and England. And those that were eligible gained a new link to enter the survey and fill out the questionnaire. Now, when they completed the questionnaire, they also got snowball links to hand out to their friends and family, although we kept that at a minimum, only 4, to make sure we don't have a lot of clustering effects, which will impact on our inference. And it would certainly change the way that we're calculating survey weights if we have large clusters. And then the question was, as I said, after a month, we had to instigate new rules for the survey to make sure we didn't have bots and fraud. And so we had to implement digital fingerprinting, which means that we could only have one IP address per response. And we thought that if there's snowball sampling and you're giving the links out to your family members, there might be a problem with the IP address. And therefore, we used a parallel survey data collection platform for snowball links. So again, these are things we never thought of. Nobody's done this type of large-scale survey, and things that we found in our application that we had to consider. And so we had a special platform for those that are coming in from the snowball links versus the main survey. Now, we used incentives to increase response rates. Anybody who answered the questionnaire got a 10-pound incentive. And naturally, after they completed the questionnaire, they got a voucher. And then we found that we had a lot of bots and people getting 10 pounds so anyway, scamming the system. So in the end, we decided that giving out incentives would have to be done after they completed the survey. The survey organization would send them an email to make sure, another check that this is actually a real person. And once they responded on email, then they got their 10-pound voucher. So very important. Don't have it automatic on the system. So we had a lot of evidence of fraud. We had to pause the survey to put in the digital fingerprinting, only one IP address. We had those CAPTCHA things, and to make sure we're reducing the bots. And then we instituted the survey after 4 weeks, and it sort of did impact on our data collection when we had that pause, because we really had this big momentum going, and then we had to stop and change things around. And so then after that, the responses were coming in more slowly, and we actually used some of these panel members that the survey organizations use. So we'll talk about that. Now, we had a lot of data quality control to make sure we had legitimate responses, not just the IP checks, but what was the time it took to fill out the questionnaire. We looked in the write-in responses to make sure they made sense and they weren't gibberish. And then we had other checks, like, is the language that the questionnaire we used, was that the same as sort of the ethnic minority group that they had identified with. So that's how we found we had fraud, was when we had many questionnaires coming in the Chinese language, but the ethnic minority group was not Chinese, right? So you could think of all of these logic checks, how they heard about the survey. Did the Gypsy Traveler hear about the survey from another VCSE, which wouldn't have made sense. We looked at the inconsistencies in the questionnaire responses, invalid write-in responses, and inconsistent household characteristics. So we had a lot of checks to make sure that we're getting rid of all that fraud. And indeed, after we started the survey up again, all of the responses were much better. Now, to do a non-probability sample, you need quotas. So we're not going to select the sample in advance, but I do know what my desired sample size is for collecting data in each ethnic minority group, and age and region, etc. So in order to do the quotas, we have no data on ethnic minority groups in the United Kingdom, but there is an academic work at the University of Leeds where they have done, from the census 2011, so it's quite old, they have done projections of ethnic counts by age and by region. And so we had to use that in order to determine our quotas, how many we want in each group. And we supplemented that with whatever proportions we came up with the census 2011, which was the most recent census. At the end of the day, we sort of adapted this. We did some iterative proportional fitting. It's called structure preserving estimation spree, where we try and take the information that we had from FPOP and from the proportions in 2011 census, but then we looked at what is the UK marginal totals for sex, age group, and region, which we do have every year based on the ONS, the Office for National Statistics population estimates. And we fit the data that we had so that the sex, age group, and regions match the current population estimates. And from there, we built our quotas. And it wasn't just doing a proportional sampling. We also wanted to oversample the very small ethnic minority groups, particularly the Gypsy Travelers, the Roma populations. And so we decided we would do a disproportionate quota sample and ensure minimum sample sizes, and by compensating from the larger ethnic minority groups. So what you see here is the sample. These are the proportions of the sample size. We tried to design a sample of size 12,000, and these are the proportions that are, proportional in the population. And we didn't. So the top are our ethnic minority groups that we're interested in. You can see we have 18 ethnic minority groups here, which is far beyond whatever's being done in any of our probability-based surveys. Now, in this column here, the third column here, you have our quotas based on undersampling the large groups and boosting the small groups. So here you have, for example, the white gypsy traveler, we boosted those. If we would have gone proportionate, we would have had 41 in our sample, but we want to be able to publish statistics on the white gypsy travelers, so we boosted that to 375. And then we brought down some of the other groups. So the white Eastern Europe, we brought down to 975. So very, very disproportionate quota samples. And what you have on the far side here is what we got in practice, okay? So we did not end up with a sample size of 12,000 for ethnic minority groups, even though we had the budget for that. We ended up with 8,362. So a bit disappointing. We also had a white British sample because we wanted to have a baseline to make comparisons. And there was also an other category, which we left without a quota, whatever, people might have said they're an other ethnic minority group. So those totaled 5,859. So together, our sample size was 14,221, of which 8,362 were defined in our quotas as being the ethnic minority group that we're interested in. So in order to make sure we meet our quotas, we looked at, obviously, my work in probability-based surveys has to do with responsive designs and data collection. And we have developed a method called an R indicator, the representativity indicator, which basically in our probability-based samples, it's looking at the data collection after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, determining which groups are missing in our data collection, and then deciding which groups should we go out and target in our data collection. So that's all work on responsive survey designs. And we had developed an indicators to inform these responsive designs. And in 2019, we looked at indicators that are based on population counts, if we don't know the non-probability sample counts, to produce these propensity scores. And I'm giving you here a little bit of methodology. So in this case, think of our non-probability sample. There's no such thing as a non-response, right? So we have to look at our quotas to try and determine the population-based estimates to try and determine the propensity to respond. And you can see here for propensity to respond, we didn't use a logistic regression, we used a linear regression. But the idea is that if we decompose this linear regression on the probability to respond, we can replace some of these totals here, the design matrix and the total here, by these population counts that I got to determine the quotas. And so we were estimating propensities to respond using the population counts. And then from here, the representativity indicator is 1 minus 2 times the standard deviation of these propensities. And this tells us how well we're doing in data collection, in terms of representing, the population. We can also drill down and get partial R indicators. In this case, we can look at what variable is contributing to the lack of representativity, and not only the variable, but what category is contributing to the lack of representativity, and therefore we can, target, go to the VCSEs, go to these organizations, say, oh, I am missing Chinese people that are age 65 and over. Can we go to your list? Can we target these people in data collection and make sure we have a representative sample? So this was, again, very innovative, because this was all work that was designed for probability-based samples and trying to apply this in non-probability-based samples. And just to show you some of these results, I've got your faces over some of these numbers, so I can't see them. So the R indicator, I think, was 0.43, which is not great if you're looking for an indicator between 0 and 1. And what I'm showing you here are these categorical level indicators. For example, here you see London, Northeast, Northwest. Here you've got males, females. Here you've got the ethnic minority groups. And you can see when we develop these indicators, the fact that we have a negative means we're underrepresented in London, and if it's positive, we're overrepresented. So you can see we're slightly underrepresented in London, Northeast. This is, by the way, the final. Of course, we did this every few weeks to try and monitor our data collection, but this was the final results. So we are underrepresented in London, Northeast, Southeast, West Midlands, Yorkshire, and Humber, but we did well in Wales, and you can see we did well in Scotland. Missing males versus females. Now, in the ethnic minority groups, we've got 2 columns, and the reason we have 2 columns is because one is based on the representation of the true population, but remember we boosted, right? And we undersampled and oversampled. So one column of the R indicators based on the quota, and the other column is actually looking at the true proportions of the population. And this, of course, is going to make a big impact when I start thinking about calibration and weights. Here you've got our, again, the breakdown of the sample size on the left. We had 14,221, but a lot of our responses, especially for the white British, we did not purposely sample white British. They were not included in the main survey. They only came from these panels that the Ipsos had. They have a few of these panel members and prolific. So particularly this number is quite large because that's where our white British is coming from. But still, we also went to Ipsos and prolific, and we said, give us all of your panel members that have ethnic minority group identification in them. Okay, so moving on. So this was just about cleaning the data. You all know that when we collect data, it's quite messy. So we had some people that abandoned the survey in the middle. There were 121, and they completed 2/3 of the questionnaire, but we decided to impute the rest of the questionnaire for those cases. There's always, data cleaning imputation going on. We had a prefer not to say category, which we had to complete. And of course, we're going to be weighting on age, sex, ethnic group, and region. So sometimes we had to actually impute for those for these key weighting variables. Lots of data cleaning, corrections. We produced a confidential data set to put up into the UK data service for other users to use. And we also published a book, which I think will be in the last slide. So this was some implication about, what was the impact of having to impute age group, for example, and looking at that across a particular variable in the survey. Has anyone insulted you for reasons to do with your ethnicity? And you can see here that this distribution of age with and without these imputed values did not make much difference. And so we had to make sure that if we did have to impute for these weighting classes, age, sex, ethnic group, region, that we're not impacting on the results of the survey. So Red, all of this work sounds very trivial, but it's a lot of work, those of you who are working in survey statistics. Now, the weighting was very interesting. We had two sets of weights because in the middle, after we produced the first set of weights, the Census 2021 came out in England and Wales, not Scotland. And so we could actually replace some of these benchmarking on actual values that came out of the 2021, and we didn't have to do our guesswork that we did with that University of Leeds data set. So we had 2,310 weighting classes defined by 5 age groups. Unfortunately, we had to combine the 55s and over. Sex, region 8, and ethnicity 21. Because there were some cases in the sample that we didn't get any respondents in those 2,310 weighting classes, we had to collapse or combine weighting classes. So we ended up with a total of 1,705 weighting classes. For the calibration, we used a raking ratio procedure, which fits the all two-way margins of the weighting class variables using iterative proportional fitting, starting with design weights. That's standard in our probability-based survey. What is not standard here is how I'm going to get those design weights in a non-probability sample. So we know that calibration alone does not correct for selection bias, but it does give us, deals with the fact that I have coverage errors, right? I had these quotas, not everybody responded. And maybe we didn't reach some individuals in our surveys. So calibration will compensate for the coverage problems. It will not help us with the selection bias. So in recent research here, we've got a paper in Chen, Li, and Wu in 2019. And we use a quasi-randomization approach using a probability reference sample. And this is why I wanted to make sure that when I stack the probability reference sample and the non-probability sample, that there are variables in common to run a propensity score. So we're going to do propensity score calculations. And we will be using a logistic function, although the method proposed in Chen, Li, and Wu accounts for the fact that our probability reference is a sample and not a population. So you can see here in the theory, since we're all statisticians, I wanted to give you the theory. For the logistic function, we have to look at the likelihood estimator. And you can see it here for the A, which is the non-probability sample, and then a B is supposed to be the population. So you can see that the sum is I is equal to 1 to capital N. And this is what the likelihood function looks like, a log likelihood function looks like for a logistic regression. And what the Chen, Li, and Wu did looked at this final term here, which is supposed to be based on the population. And they said, well, let's use our probability reference sample B. And we're going to put in the sample weight from the reference sample, WJ, and weight this using the sample. So instead of we don't have a population, we can use the sample. And there's some heavy assumptions here, like everybody has a non-zero chance of being selected into the non-probability sample and other criteria in order to use this approach. But in any case, we're going to use this logistic regression function to estimate a propensity to be included in the non-probability sample. And using this approach by Chen, Li, and Wu, we use a Newton-Raphson procedure to get the maximum likelihood estimate of these psi's so that we can calculate the propensity to respond to this non-probability sample. So you can see usually in probability based, right? We got those that responded, those that don't respond, right? And we just 0, 1, and we run a logistic regression model. Here it's not so simple. We need this probability reference sample, and I can't emphasize enough that when we were able to design the questionnaire on the non-probability sample, we made sure that we had same questions on the non-probability sample as the probability sample. So I'm telling you, yes, I'm showing you, so before I get to what those variables are, how do we build a probability reference sample that has all the variables that we're interested in? Obviously, the labor force survey does not have participation variables, and a social survey will not have a lot of the social economic background that we need to build these pseudo design weights. And so we did a really interesting exercise where we actually statistically matched the labor force survey, 2 years of the labor force survey, the annual population survey, to the social survey in the UK. On the social survey, we have participation variables, trust in your government, neighborhood engagement, if you're a member of a discriminated group, if you voted in the last election. So we statistically matched the social survey to the labor force survey. And of course, the social survey was much smaller than the labor force survey. So at the end of the day, whatever was not matched, we carried out something called a mass imputation. And basically, we looked at 2 methods, multiple imputation, predictive mean matching versus fractional hot deck imputation that was developed by Kim and Fuller back in the days in the University of Iowa. And we did, again, huge amount of work, so I'm not going to bore you with all that, but we compared the two methods. We looked at sort of this Hellinger's distance on the entire imputed APS, ESS data on variables of interest in our survey, whether they voted, discrimination, health, etc. And we could see that the Hellinger's, the FHDI, the fractional hot deck imputation, performed better than the multiple imputation. The advantage of a fractional hot deck imputation is you only end up with one data set. So we didn't have to do multiple imputation data sets and then run all of these methods multiple times and then combine the results. You end up with one data set. So basically, it gives you a set of variables and their probability of being the true variable. And since these are all categorical variables, we took the mode, which category had the highest mode in this distribution of all possible categories. And that's how the FH, the fractional hot deck, works. So as I said, we had our reference sample, we had the our unweighted even survey. And so we had to try and get all of these variables that we're going to include into that logistic regression model. And just to show you a couple of these results, the reference sample versus the naive even sample, and what were some of the differences in the distribution. Certainly health had a huge impact, right? Because evens was during the COVID period. So huge differences in the health outcomes versus our probability reference sample. But looking at the interest in politics, not that different, but nevertheless, we use these variables to include in our logistic regression model to get the pseudo design weights. So as I said, we used those variables. Here they are. We used separately, we did the propensity score estimation separately for the white British, all other ethnic groups. These are the variables: trust in parliament, trust in police, interest in politics. Again, that drives whether an individual might be inclined to respond to a web survey or not. And then our typical social economic variables: age, education, marital status, occupation, certainly your ethnicity. And at the end of the day, we calculated our propensities using the approach that I mentioned in the previous slide. And then we had two options. What do we do with these inverse propensities? We can keep the inverse propensity as a pseudo design weight, and again, then we will then calibrate on them. Or what's often done in our probability-based surveys, because they're so variable, is to use the propensities to stratify. So we stratified into 20 groups, and instead of the, each individual having their inverse propensity, we put in a average propensity. And that's often done to drive down, the variance that's caused by these very variable inverse propensities. So we looked at both strategies, the inverse propensity and the stratification of the propensities. Now, these are our pseudo design weights, and then we calibrate on them, as I mentioned. So just some final results here. I don't have a clock. I'm not sure I'm going over time. Nobody stopped me yet. So these are just looking at the increase. Let's just look at the final row here. The increase in the standard error because of the variability of the weights. So if we just did calibration alone, we would have 1.5. The inverse propensity benchmarked weights is 1.9. The propensity stratification is 1.9. But in the end, we did go with the propensity stratification benchmarked weights, but we also trimmed them. So because remember, for the gypsy traveler, proportionate to the population, I think the sample size was 41, and we said we want 375. So some of the weights are really, really, really tiny because of this disproportionate sample. So we trimmed them. We wanted to make sure that we're at least a weight of 2, right? That would be the minimum weight. So the weights are quite varying in a non-probability sample, something we have to expect and deal with. And of course, we have variance estimation on our estimates. We looked at using bootstrapping for these weights, and I'm showing you how it can be done. We draw a sample with replacement in the probability reference sample, the sample with replacement from the non-probability sample, right? That's what we do for bootstrap. And then we run the whole weighting procedure over, and we do that multiple times, and then we can use these combining rules. Well, we could use the M replicates to get a estimate of the variance. Now, the issue here is that at the time, but while we were developing this, the sociologists were estimating all these estimates and producing the book, which I'll mention. And I told them that they had to use R or Stata or whatever software they're comfortable with, but they have to use the complex survey designs. So in a complex survey design, you put in the stratification, which is ethnicity, and you put in the survey weight. Because in the complex designs, it calculates the variances using sandwich estimators, not simple random sampling. And those variances were quite close to the bootstrap variances. And so at the end of the day, we sort of went with making sure that all researchers who are accessing this data knows how to use a package like Stata with the SVY command and the R packages that incorporate complex survey designs in them. Anyways, just a couple of examples here. Can't remember what this is, because the bar is there it is, experiencing a bereavement. So you can see, I sort of ordered them. So the Black Caribbeans had sort of the highest experience to bereavements, the Chinese the lowest, and lots of different statistics that we can produce from this data. And you can see the confidence intervals are quite wide. Obviously, I mean, it's a survey. Some of these ethnic minority groups are quite small, but also we've got these very, very, different weights, obviously, in a non-probability sample. And that's also driving the width of this confidence interval. This one, see which one, this is it, whether you were experienced any racism in the last 5 years. So again, we have these mixed groups. The white and Black Africans seem to be high, the white gypsy traveler, the Jewish also during COVID, the Chinese particularly experienced a lot of racism during the COVID experiences. So many different results. So finally, I hope I didn't go over time. I haven't been looking at my clock. This is the website of this book that was published. Findings from the Evidence for Equality National Surveys. And obviously we're also pushing out papers. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Professor Natalie, for these beautiful presentations, which I'm sure that every one of us are getting 1 or 2 things there. So we'd love to take 1 or 2 questions. So, question from the people here physical and other people online. Anybody that have a question to ask, please? Okay, we have someone here that's Dr. G. Daudu. Please kindly ask a question, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation, ma. It's really educative. And it takes us back to those days when we studied proportional allocations in sampling. Except that this is a particular complicated survey. It's more of the regular type. But then, during the discussions, there are questions that I do have here. What was used to determine the proportional allocation on minority groups? You got that?
Yes. Do you want me to answer, or should I wait for all your questions?
Okay. Do I go to the next one then? Okay.
Oh, what do you want me to answer? So I said that we had some data from the University of Leeds who had done some population projections specifically on ethnic minority groups. So we were able to get the quotas using a proportional allocation. But at the end of the day, we did not use proportional allocation because we wanted to boost those small groups. And then so it was definitely disproportionate, not proportionate. But at the end of the day, when you're weighting on calibrating, your calibration, it's based on the true population counts. And that's one of the reasons why the calibration caused a lot of variation, because Gypsy Traveler, we had 300 cases when in proportion they should have been 41, whatever percent that is. So you can see that we ended up with very volatile weights. When you do disproportionate sampling, even in the probability sampling, it does impact on the efficiency, right? On your variance estimates, because these weights are now very volatile.
Okay. All right. I will say, what about the 6 records that were deleted? Wouldn't that affect the sample size? And if
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, I mentioned we had 2 set of weights.
Okay.
And so we did the first set of weights on these best guesses, the population based on the quotas. And then we redid the weights when the census counts came in for only England and Wales. We didn't have Scotland. We had to still use our best guess. But as we were looking at the data, we noticed that there were 6 records that were like all missing or deleted. I mean, it was just, they weren't supposed to have been in there. So when we did the second set of weights, and we noticed that these, it looked like a record, but once you started digging in and then analyzing, there was nothing there. We deleted them. So the second set of weights, the population was 14,215 or something. We lost 6 records. But obviously we're using those set of weights because those are based on the current census. And so, you should ignore whatever weights were done before.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Let's take question from people watching us online. Anybody with a question online? Is there anybody?
I just think this is a really innovative approach to carrying samples. And I know this is also problems, certainly in African countries and trying to reach neighborhoods. But a lot of people have mobile phones, right? So we need to think as survey statisticians outside of the box. How do we reach these hard to capture populations? And let's do it with a lot of thought so that we can somehow adjust for selection bias at the end. And let's make our statistics more inclusive.
Yeah, thank you. Prof, let's quickly look at this, the representativity indicators. Please, will you throw light on how it contributed to ensuring the representation of the sample?
Okay, so in our, you can look up there's loads of literature on responsive and adaptive survey designs, and my colleagues have produced books. And the idea, and it was developed, first thought of in the United States Census Bureau, back when Bob Groves was the head of the Census Bureau. And the idea is that, we have a probability sample that's probability based, but during data collection, the methodologists, the statisticians are now getting involved in the data collection and looking at each week, taking an assessment of who is in the sample, who have we not reached. Let's go out and target this neighborhood, maybe do a face-to-face. Let's do an intervention to make sure we have a more representative sample. It might even cause less sample size, but it'll be more representative. And so that's the notion of responsive and adaptive survey design. And my colleague Barry Schouten and others in the Statistics Netherlands, we developed something called an R indicator. So an R indicator is the propensity to respond, right? You've got a logistic regression for those that responded and those that didn't respond. And we have auxiliary information. about those that are, about the whole frame, sample frame, or maybe we know information about the neighborhood characteristics and the paradata. But the idea is that we get a propensity to respond. We divide the sample into sort of strata based on these propensities to respond, and we see, oh, this group is really hard to respond. So let's do an intervention. Let's send another letter. Let's send out an interviewer. Let's do something to make sure that we have a higher propensity to respond. Now, this is measured as the variance of the propensities. If there are no variations in response propensities, everybody's the same. So I don't have to go and collect more data in that particular strata. But if the variance is very large, right, in this strata, then we have a problem. We need, we have very differential response propensities, then we need to go out and target. So that is the idea of adaptive search. And so the idea here in a non-probability sample was we don't have non-response respondents like you do in a probability-based sample. So perhaps instead of the non-respondents, we can sort of plug in our population estimates to get an estimate of that propensity score. And then it's the same idea, looking at the variation of propensities within these groups, London, the region, age, and trying to see where are those negative values coming in? Where should I be targeting my recruitment? Now, it's not the recruitment in the sense of a probability-based sample. I have to go to the VCSC. I have to go, if I'm missing Muslim populations, I have to go to the VCSC that represents the Muslim population to try and increase. So, I don't know if it had a lot of success, but it was very innovative in the sense that even in a non-probability sample, we can think outside of the box and look at what's been done in the probability-based sample.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have any question from online? Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Natalie. We have one question, and it's, how usable will this data be for inference, please?
So the fact that we are doing this very careful weighting and the careful design and the careful weighting, we are of the opinion that our sample is representative and that we can carry out statistical inference on this data. Again, we have to think about these confidence intervals. They're quite large, but you can do statistical inference. And as a matter of fact, we have a new grant I'm working on now, funded by the Economic and Social Research Council, on transforming data collection. And so they are looking at our methods for non-probability sampling, inclusive sampling. And my actual work is to sort of develop some indicators of selection bias, and seeing, how is there any more selection bias after we apply the weights? It's not perfect. It's still a sample. There's still standard errors and confidence intervals. And so there is further work going on in inclusive data collections and more work in this area about, as you say, here we are doing statistical inference. Did we correct for that selection bias?
Yeah, thank you. Is somebody else online?
Yeah, we have one more question, please.
Okay, make it snappy, please.
And the question is, Professor Natalie, considering some low, medium income countries where they hardly provide incentive to drive participants, how do you think this method will be implementable? Thank you.
Okay, so the issue of incentives in our probability-based surveys is always a big question in lots of literature. This was a non-probability sample, an opt-in, right? It's not, they're not mandated by the government to go and respond. Most of our surveys are mandatory in many countries. So it's an opt-in survey. And so naturally, we wanted to give an incentive. We gave a 10-pound voucher. That caused huge problems with fraud and bots. And so the way we did that, as I said, we actually sent it out in an email after they responded so that we could also, another way of verifying that that was a real person. I don't know, I don't know if that drives response or not. I would certainly use incentives in this type of format where you've got, opt-in web surveys. I don't think there's a lot of evidence, certainly in our government national statistical institutes, that incentives are helping us, especially because many of the surveys or censuses are mandatory anyways. So, but I think that we need to think outside of the box as a survey statistician, that perhaps in this case where you have an opt-in web survey, that incentive is going to make a difference. Now, I did not do an experimental design. We did not do any, checks to see what happens if and with and without the incentive. That would be a good thing to do for future research. So well done on the suggestion.
Thank you.
So I think, since there's no other question to ask, we need to round up this section. And want to use this opportunity to appreciate Professor Nathaniel for your significant contributions. So please, we keep on asking more and more. And we are very sure that you keep on supporting us. So thank you for your presentation and giving solution to questions.
And thank you very much. And I just want to remind you to please join the International Association of Survey Statisticians. I'm sure Matthew will give a link to the participants there on how to join the IASS. It's really important. I know young people who all have mobile phones and social media think that joining a professional association is not necessary, but believe me, joining the professional association is very important to our profession in terms of our ethics and promoting new research, and it's really, really important. And of course, coming from Nigeria, I think it's only about 35 euros a year or something. So please, please join the IASS.
Thank you. By God's grace, we are going to share the links on various platforms so that everybody will be well informed. We have been doing that and we'll keep on doing that. So I will keep on to encourage them to join. Thank you.
Actually, there is a new website, so I'm going to put it in the chat, okay?
Okay, thank you. If there's anything, you can put in the chat, and I'm sure you attend to it. Thank you. We bring this section to an end, and we are have to break out to sections. So we have section A, section B, and C. So you know your presentation time and the section you belong to. So please kindly join, and the people are there to take your presentation, and we go ahead from there. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy whatever be the section you are joining. Thank you.
From the one the answer to the ndị aikukwa ndị aikukwa akwa ndị a dị nnekwu ndị a na-ada akpọ some of them they I mean sometimes I say yo
Yes, hello everyone. This is a podcast section, so we have section A, B, and C. From the program, all the presenters, they know the section they belong to. If yours is A, join link A. If yours is B, join B. If yours is C, join C. So in the next 2 minutes, we'll start, and we will start from the first presenter as it's being arranged on the program. So thank you.
Please, so that Emma would check. Oh, now now they've changed it to music and we got time and we do or more fertilizer. Name it. Why are they yell not talk for it? You like say you know good to sing. You didn't meet yourself. You didn't meet yourself.
Hello? Wow. Hello, everyone. Please, if you want to join the breakout session online, just click on More, then click on Join Breakout Session. There you'll see the 3 sessions. Pick anyone you want and join. That's for those that are online. Okay, you join the one that you are assigned to. Please join the one that you are assigned to. Just click on More, go to Join Breakout Session, then join any session that you are assigned to. Either A, B, or C. Yeah, for your presentation, please join now so that we can start. We still have some people that are yet to join the session. Please, Adeoye Basirat, you are yet to join. Abiodun Kami, Abiodun Kami, Amina Modu, please join a session now. Anima Shawn Okweyemi, kindly join a session. Yeah, Dr. Adeshino, please join a session. Kingsley Kunle Ajuwon, Omotola Adeniyi, kindly join a session. Please, Oyinbo, join a session. Omotola Adeniyi, Philip read one. Oh, is this? Olakunleyin, Safia, please join a session and start your presentation. Shitu Abdullahi. Please try. Amina Modu, please try again. Try again and check your network. Everything is intact here. Try again and check your network. Just click on More, click Join Breakout Session, then choose any session that you are assigned with, either Section A, Section B, or Section C. We still have about 20 people that are yet to join. All right, please. We need you to join the session now. Just click on more, then click on join breakout session. Are you there? Click on more, click on join. Ah, okay. Yeah, not bad. We still have about 17 people that are yet to join. Please join, go and join now. Click on more, click on join breakout session, then join anyone that you are assigned to. We have Abiodun Komi. Please, you are here to join. We want everybody to join now. Click on more, click on join breakout session, then click on the session you are assigned to. We still have 15 people here to join. We have 15 people here to join. We have 15 people yet to join. Please click on more to join the breakout session. Click on more, click on join breakout session. You can only present in the breakout session. We have 18 people yet to join. Please, to join the breakout session, click on more, click on join breakout session, then click on the session you are assigned to. This people anyway, please, Mrs. Ugu, Gloria, kindly join a session. Any statistics? So we do. Kindly join a session, Mr. Makinde Babatunde. Click on more, click on join breakout session. Mrs. Gloria, kindly click on more on your Zoom, then click on join breakout session. Mr. Abiodun Komi, please click on more and click on join breakout session. Abel, please click on more and click on join breakout session. Then you join any session that you are assigned with. Yeah, click on more and click on join breakout session, ma'am. Mrs. Ugo Gloria. Click on more on your Zoom and click on join breakout session. To join a breakout session, locate where you will see more, where you will see 3 dots. Then when you click it, you will see join breakout session. When you click it, then you can join the session that you are into, that you are assigned to. Locate where you see more on your mobile phone on the Zoom app. Then you can join the breakout session of your choice, or of the one that you are assigned to, not of your choice. Please, we need you to join the session for those that are not yet assigned. If you're having issue or difficulty joining, kindly send a message and send the session that you are supposed to join so I can assign you automatically from this place. Just send a message and send the session that you are supposed to join. Then I will assign you from this place.
What next? Boleh sih, Bang.
Coba ambil participants.
Jadi aku nak malah ini yang sini. Masih ber. Masih ber.
We have started. Please kindly join a breakout session. Mr. Ayon Sola.
Join kini.
Saya pilih yang pria saja.
Ewo ni. Conference registration.
No, program.
Conference program. Ombe okuma.
Yeah.
Ayon Sola.
Ayon Sola yẹn sì.
Tulo.
Sí.
Ayon Sola su.
Wọ́n àpẹẹrẹ ní sí. Wọ́n àpẹẹrẹ kan ní ehe.
Ilé kọ́kọ́ ọ̀dọ̀ sí.
Ẹ̀kọ́ lọ sí.
Go. Okay, you born. Part 2 mori yo.
Paper 1, paper 2.
Okay.
Paper 1 mẹ́ta ní A, B, C.
Okay.
Paper 2
Orúkọ
A,
wọn
B,
kọ́?
C. Wọ́n máa wá bẹ́ẹ̀ orúkọ ní Osman.
Usman ti wọlé. Adeoye Basirat. Ìdìbò ìyàwó.
Ọ̀gá mi wà lọ́dọ̀ pé wọn ò fi lẹ́sìn.
Look, àwọn kan wà tí wọ́n ní present. Lẹ́ẹ̀kọ́ gbogbo àwọn tó máa present lọ.
Tó ti wọlé.
We have only 9 left.
Tí ó wà sáàbí.
Tí ó wà assign.
Ilé náà present, ìkéde náà present.
Èwo ni?
Ilé náà present.
Ẹ jẹ́ ká wo omi tó máa wà.
Ìsàkápátá ni. Ìṣòro ìgbésí.
Azan. Desmond.
Àmì ìlú lọ́wọ́ mi. Assign wọn sí di assign wọn lọ́wọ́. Assign wọn lọ́wọ́.
Okay.
Ó gẹ̀tẹ̀.
Kò ní sí i.
Tí àwọn ẹ̀kọ́ ọdún. Ìyàsán ìlú wa. Ó rí wa o. Àwọn kan náà ibi wọ́n tún bọ́ tapẹ́ àwọn.
Hello. Ṣé wọ́n ní ẹ bẹ́sẹ̀? Wọ́n ní wọ́n ṣe ẹ̀pẹ́ ní ìdá ní ìpàdé kò ní ṣe kí ìgbà yẹn oníṣẹ́ padà lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀kọ́.
Hello, please, if you can hear me, I'm not hearing anything from the session. I'm not hearing anything. I don't even know if I'm actually connected.